A very warm hello to everyone. I'm Sukanya, and today we are here to discuss the nitty-gritties of your CLAT examination, specifically English section. I know you guys might be wondering why are we doing this, but this is a very important aspect because it kind of gives you a very clear blueprint as to how to prepare, what exactly to focus on, right? So primarily, we'll be discussing here the different types of genres which have been predominant, as well as the different types of question stems जो बार बार आपको देखने को मिलते हैं. So these are basically the question stems where you need to be exceedingly brilliant, right? So coming to the very first slide, we are going to discuss the previous year papers and very specifically the past 3 years papers here. The first one is CLAT 2022. As you can very well see here, it will be great if you guys can, click a picture of this so that you can have that for your record. Now, तुम लोगों को ये तो अच्छे से पता ही होगा कि अभी बहुत ही रिसेंटली क्लैट का जो पेपर पैटर्न है वो चेंज हुआ है. पहले 150 क्वेश्चंस आया करते थे एंड व्हेन इट कम्स टू द इंग्लिश सेक्शन वी यूज्ड टू गेट 30 क्वेश्चंस. ठीक है. अब ऑब्वियसली क्लैट 2024 जो सब लोगों ने देखा ही होगा आई गेस, उसमें the questions have been cut short, they have been reduced to 120 overall, and when it comes to the English section अब 24 questions आते हैं. और तुम लोगों ने एक चीज और समझी होगी कि सबसे predominant part जो है CLAT examination English section का वो है reading comprehension. So that's exactly what we are seeing here. As you can see the number of questions, there were 30 questions in CLAT 2022 in the form of obviously 6 passages, 5 questions per passage. ठीक है. सबसे पहला पैसेज जो था वो पब्लिक स्पीकिंग था. अच्छा, एक और चीज मैं यहाँ पे बता दूं कि ये एक पर्टिकुलर पेपर था जिसमें सारे के सारे पैसेजेस जो थे वो नॉन फिक्शन थे. ठीक है. Non-fiction, but obviously of diverse genres. So as you can see, the first passage was about public speaking and it was specifically a historical analysis. So public speaking was dealt with in a historical sort of way. ठीक है. The second one was about this person Saru who was a beggar और उसकी थोड़ी सी स्टोरी हमें पता चलती है and it was a social commentary या हम उसे reflective essay भी बोल सकते हैं. So as you can see again, non-fiction, but different or diverse genres, which are very well seen on the screen. The third one was wash, and it starts with giving us an overview of COVID-19 and how COVID-19 has changed things for all of us. And again, it was non-fiction, biographical or historical analysis. तो एक चीज कॉमन थी यहाँ पे हर जगह पे कि नॉन फिक्शन पैसेजेस आए थे. But do not be too sure because CLAT has been very well known for its erratic nature. एराटिक नेचर का मतलब होता है हमेशा कोई एक स्टडी सा पेपर पैटर्न नहीं होता है. तो इंग्लिश में काफी कुछ चीजें चेंज भी हो सकती है. द फोर्थ पैसेज वाज अबाउट क्रिप्टो करेंसी तुम लोगों ने देखा होगा बीच में बहुत ही पॉपुलर हुआ था ये आइडिया, ये कॉन्सेप्ट, राइट. एंड दिस पैसेज वाज अबाउट क्रिप्टो करेंसी, अगेन नॉन फिक्शन. It was an opinion piece and that's the reason why we keep on stressing कि क्यों editorial पढ़ना चाहिए हर दिन, because sometimes the editorial is directly picked from one of the newspapers और अगर आपने already पढ़ा हुआ है तो you kind of have an upper hand there, right? The next passage is about fossil fuels. अगेन यहाँ पे जियोपॉलिटिकल एनालिसिस हुआ था. इसका मतलब है कि वी टॉक्ड अबाउट फॉसिल फ्यूल्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ नेशनल एज वेल एज इंटरनेशनल बॉर्डर्स. एंड अगेन मूविंग ऑन टू द लास्ट पैसेज फॉर क्लैट 2022, इट वाज अबाउट एनिमल राइट्स मूवमेंट. तो ये एक फिलोसफिकल या हिस्टोरिकल एनालिसिस था. तो इवन अगर हम नॉन फिक्शन देखें तो नॉन फिक्शन में भी 3 पैसेजेस ऐसे आए थे जो हिस्टोरिकल एनालिसिस पे थे. ठीक है. नाउ आई होप दिस मच इज क्लियर. Okay, and Aryan, hopefully it will happen soon. I just hope that for now, previous year papers 3 साल के काफी हैं. ठीक है. We are soon going to come up with a 5-year analysis as well. So moving forward, as you can see, the predominant question stems. कौन से questions ज्यादा देखने को मिले in CLAT 2022? सबसे ज्यादा questions अगर हम देखें तो वो vocabulary पे आए थे. vocabulary पे 6 questions आए थे. बाकी contextual questions जो थे वो 12 थे. That means questions based on the context of the passage. So as you can see, main idea questions in different versions. For example, they might have asked you what is the main theme, or maybe what is the central idea, or what is the primary purpose. The question तो same ही था, main idea question था. So there were 3 questions from main idea, 6 questions on vocab as I've already discussed, plus two more questions on vocab, but they were in a very different format than usual. They were in the form of fill in the blanks. ठीक है, फिर उसके बाद चार क्वेश्चंस आए थे टोन पे, तो तुम लोगों को हम लोग बता ही चुके हैं कि टोन्स एक बहुत ही आप बोल सकते हो इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक है, वेरी क्रूशियल व्हेन इट कम्स टू क्लैट प्रिपरेशन. सी, if you're just looking at tones in terms of one of the important aspects of English, ये तो एक बात है ही, बट दूसरी बात ये है कि tones also help you improve and enhance your vocabulary. So never underestimate the ability to know more words. ठीक है? So as you can see, there were four questions on tones, three questions on figures of speech, जो कि तुम लोगों ने अभी recently भी देखा होगा कि अगर मॉक्स दे रहे होगे तुम लोग, तो तुम लोग वहां पे भी फिगर्स ऑफ स्पीच सॉल्व कर ही रहे होगे. सो फिगर्स ऑफ स्पीच थ्री क्वेश्चंस, एंड कॉन्टेक्स्ट बेस का मतलब ये होता है कि इसमें इन्फरेंस भी आ गया, इसमें डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चंस भी आ गए, इसमें गूगली क्वेश्चंस भी आ गए, इसमें स्पेसिफिक डिटेल क्वेश्चंस भी आ गए, बट एवरीथिंग काइंड ऑफ रिवॉल्व्स अराउंड द पैसेज. सो पैसेज में से क्वेश्चंस 12 आए थे. ठीक है, नाउ मूविंग ऑन टू क्लैट 2023. Now, CLAT 2023, again, the number of questions were 30. Again, it was in the format of 6 passages, 5 questions each, क्योंकि अभी यहाँ पे पेपर फॉर्मेट चेंज नहीं हुआ था. अब यहाँ पे हमने देखा कि 2022 में सिर्फ सारे के सारे पैसेजेस जो थे वो नॉन फिक्शन थे, बट यहाँ पे हमने देखा कि यहाँ पे अचानक से फिक्शन देखने को मिला, और वो भी बहुत ज्यादा देखने को मिला. सो वी गेट टू सी दैट द फर्स्ट पैसेज वाज अबाउट दिस कबाड़ी वाला इन कालिंगपोंग. इट्स अबाउट अ लिटिल गर्ल हु लव्स टू रीड एंड हाउ ही शी काइंड ऑफ गेट्स द बुक्स फ्रॉम दिस कबाड़ी वाला. ठीक है, नाउ दिस वाज अ लिटरेरी पैसेज. लिटरेरी पैसेज का मतलब होता है समथिंग विच इज बेस्ड ऑन लिटरेचर. You might have seen excerpts, you might have seen short stories, you might have also read excerpts from novels. तो ये सारी चीजें आपको पढ़ने की जरूरत है when you want to get some mastery when it comes to literature. ठीक है, second one was about this Kiladi dig. And Kiladi dig जो है वो एक अगर हम बात करें, ये एक हिस्टोरिकल आप बोल सकते हो आर्कियोलॉजिकल साइट है, और इसके बारे में आपको काफी कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन मिली थी in this one passage. So this was again non-fiction. It was a historical analysis. And then we got to know about internet and delusions. I think we kind of live in a generation of internet as well as delusions. So it was very relatable to most of the people. And this was a personal essay. Or you can also call it a cultural critique. यानी कि आप बोल सकते हो इस चीज को आर्ट एंड कल्चर का पार्ट था ये. ठीक है, because it was kind of being critical or criticizing the culture which is contemporarily seen everywhere. तो ये एक पैसेज आया था. Moving on to the next one, passage 4 was about water tank mafia. Now this was about the illegal practices of how water is procured and how water is circulated. ठीक है, तो ये जो water tank mafia है, he plays a very pivotal role in this exchange. And this was again non-fiction, and it was a part of investigative journalism. Investigative journalism का मतलब है somebody is trying to investigate on such a big issue. तो यही passage था पूरा. And then again we got a passage on English, the language of privilege. But यहाँ पे English को एक अलग तरीके से treat किया गया है. यहाँ पे English को ऐसे treat किया गया है कि how only the privileged people can actually afford learning English. So this was again a critical analysis, क्योंकि हम देख सकते हैं टाइटल से ही language of privilege का मतलब क्या है. The writer is being critical about it. ठीक है, it should be a language for everyone, but they are kind of categorizing it only for the privileged. And the last passage was again a literary passage, और ये literary passage में भी ये fiction था. So this was taken from one of the works of Salman Rushdie, Haroon and the Sea of Stories. And this was completely based on fantasy, or you can call it fiction. So यहाँ पे हमें देखने को मिला कि fiction में suddenly kind of it has made an entrance for everyone. So that's the reason why I say that there has always been a very irregular pattern. कुछ बच्चे पूछते हैं कि मैम कोई एक पर्टिकुलर जॉनर है जो हर बार पूछा जाता है, तो हम लोग उसका आंसर इसलिए नहीं दे पाते हैं बिकॉज देर इज नो पर्टिकुलर जॉनर दैट कैन बी आस्क्ड. इट कैन बी आस्क्ड फ्रॉम एनीवेयर, सो देर इज नो प्रिस्क्राइब्ड सिलेबस. सो ऑल यू कैन डू इज do diversified reading and obviously hope for the best. So moving to our CLAT पेपर एंड इट्स प्रीडोमिनेंट क्वेश्चन स्टेम्स. तो यहाँ पे एक नए टाइप के क्वेश्चंस आपको देखने को मिले. अगेन नए तो नहीं है इन टर्म्स ऑफ अगर आप 5 या 10 साल के पेपर्स देखोगे, बट हाँ राइट नाउ with due respect to the analysis. अगर हम यहाँ पे देखें, so main idea question was just one, very surprisingly. Again, there were 9 questions from vocabulary, so you might have actually, gathered the idea how important and crucial vocabulary is. इसीलिए मैं हमेशा सबको बोलती हूँ कि प्लीज पिक अप योर प्रीवियस ईयर पेपर्स एंड कीप ऑन गोइंग थ्रू द vocabulary words again and again. Keep on going through the vocabulary words that you encounter in the editorials. वही words वहां पे repeat होते हैं. So now there were 9 questions from vocabulary. There were 8 questions based on inference. ठीक है. और जब भी याद रखो inference के questions आ रहे हैं, that means the writer or maybe the person who has created the paper wants you to circle back to the passage, क्योंकि उसमें तुम्हें important details देखनी ही पड़ेंगी by referring back the passage. So be mentally prepared. अगर inference के questions ज्यादा दिख रहे हैं तो मुझे passage में बार बार जाना पड़ेगा. Okay. So now the next one was tone, and again, very shockingly, there was not a single question from tones. So zero. लेकिन अगेन जैसे कि मैंने बोला, जब तक वो एक सिलेबस का पार्ट है, यू आर सपोज टू स्टडी इट. सो नेवर आप बोल सकते हो नेग्लेक्ट और कॉर्नर टोन्स. बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक है. मूविंग ऑन टू द नेक्स्ट वन, फिगर्स ऑफ स्पीच का यहाँ पे सिर्फ एक क्वेश्चन था देखने को मिला. एंड कॉन्टेक्स्ट बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस, अगेन questions which have been directly extracted from the passage. There were 6 questions like that. Now there was one new question and it was based on assumption. So assumption आपको generally logical में देखने को मिलता है, but यहाँ पे भी English में पूछा गया था एक question on assumption. Also there were 3 questions and these were asked from, उन लोगों ने क्या किया था कि passage में 3 या 2 लाइन्स अंडरलाइन कर ली थी एंड दे वांटेड यू टू इंटरप्रेट दोज लाइन्स, और उसमें जो हिडन मैसेज है दैट वाज सपोज्ड टू बी द आंसर. ठीक है. और ये क्वेश्चन टाइप बहुत ही कॉमन है एंड यहाँ पे बहुत ज्यादा देखने को मिला. नाउ देयर वाज दिस वन क्वेश्चन सोर्स बेस्ड. डज एनी ऑफ यू हैव अ क्लियर आइडिया एज टू व्हाट इज अ सोर्स बेस्ड क्वेश्चन? कोई मुझे बता सकता है इन द चैट बॉक्स? लेट्स सी. सोर्स बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस क्या होते हैं? Have you ever encountered a question where they are asking, this particular piece of writing has been taken from? Has it been taken from an academic journal? Has it been taken from a scholarly article? Has it been taken from a magazine report? Has it been taken from a newspaper article? ऐसे टाइप के क्वेश्चंस देखें कि इसका सोर्स क्या है. क्या ये फिलोसॉफिकल जर्नल का पार्ट है, या क्या ये साइकोलॉजिकल जर्नल का पार्ट है, या ये किसी हिस्ट्री राइटर ने लिखा है? Exactly, very good. So you guys have done your homework. So proud of you. Very good. So there was this one question based on source. अब एक चीज याद रखना, when you're trying to figure out source, सबसे पहली चीज what you can do is pick out all the sources that you have come across so far, make a list of it and do some research. अपनी खुद की research करके रखो and take a print out of that and just go through it before any mock and obviously on the day of the exam as well. ठीक है. Because sources are definitely going to help you to gain that quick mark. इसमें टाइम नहीं लगता है अगर आपको सोर्सेस क्लियर है कि what separates historical magazine article from, आप बोल सकते हो, a historical newspaper item. अगर ये डिफरेंस पता है तो automatically you will be able to identify the answer. And yes, moving on to CLAT 2024, where obviously the paper pattern changed, and I would say the paper pattern changed for good because यहाँ पे questions जो थे वो reduce हो गए. Now we have got 24 questions और ये आने वाले समय में भी repeat होने वाला है. So we'll be getting 24 questions in the format of 4 passages. That means 6 questions per passage. अभी भी 24 से 26 नंबर तक एक्सपेक्ट कर सकते हो तुम लोग क्वेश्चंस के. ठीक है. Now the thing is, here what we got to know is, out of those 4 passages, 3 of the passages came from the literature genre. Just like what we have seen in CLAT 2023, उसमें तो सिर्फ 2 ही passages थे जो literature पे based थे. यहाँ पे 4 में से 3 passages जो थे वो literature पे based थे. Again, इसको ये मत समझना कि there is a certainty कि अगले साल भी यही होने वाला है. So do not consider it as a certainty, but yeah, do consider it as a warning to prepare well when it comes to literature. So coming back to the first passage, It was about the interplay of landscape and identity in literature. So they were talking about literature and they were talking about what exactly is the, आप बोल सकते हो, shared relationship between the landscape as well as the identity when it comes to literature. Again, this was a literary analysis. Very clearly, you can see from the title itself. The second passage, which was the only odd one out, यही एक अकेला passage था जो अलग genre से आया था. And this was about justice for the middle class versus the poor, the crisis in India's legal system. So this was a passage which was legally inclined, and this was again an opinion piece. इसका मतलब है ये भी एक opinionated essay था, और इसमें बहुत ही ज्यादा analysis हुआ था. Analysis means where pros and cons of a particular subject matter are discussed. ठीक है? So this was the only oddball out of these four passages which was from a different genre. Moving to the next one. Passage 3. Again, it has been taken from an excerpt from a story, The Mysterious Mrs. Brown. And ये बिल्कुल ही fiction पे based था, literature fiction, क्योंकि literature के दो parts होते हैं, fiction and non-fiction. अगर मैं non-fiction की बात करूँ, so it will entail autobiographies, biographies, ठीक है, book reviews. On the other hand, अगर मैं fiction की बात करूँ, तो fiction is something which is a figment of imagination. Somebody has imagined something and somebody has put it to pen. ठीक है? So passage 4 again was about legacy of English literature. अभी मैंने तुम लोगों को एक CLAT 2023 में भी passage दिखाया था. Even that was talking about English as a language, but again, it was, I would say, a critical piece because it was talking about how it is a language of the privileged. Whereas यहाँ पे, it was a very neutral perspective which was handed down to us. So legacy of English literature, from Shakespeare to contemporary voices, and this was that one passage जिसमें 6 questions में से 5 questions directly दिए हुए थे. So it was so simple to identify that people kind of started questioning themselves कि क्या इतना direct answer हो सकता है? But yes, indeed it was very direct. So this was a literary analysis or an overview, as you can clearly see. Now, moving to the predominant question stem. So you already know there were 24 questions now. 3 of them were based on main idea. That means 4 passages में से 3 passages में आपको main idea question पूछा गया है. ठीक है? Then there were 7 questions on vocabulary and context based या inferential की बात की जाए, मतलब कि indirectly implied questions की बात की जाए, so there were only 6 questions. Again, we did not see much of tone or figures of speech here, although remember that sample paper 3 did have a question on grammar, and there was one more sample paper that had a question on even figures of speech. ठीक है? So another one was direct questions. यहाँ पे ये एक ऐसा scoring part था 2024 का, that if people were smart enough or clever enough, they got the answers very directly and they saved a lot of time on the overall paper. So as you can see, there were 8 questions which were directly asked, which can be directly referred if you are really clever at marking your keywords when you are reading the questions. And again, we did not get any question on assumption or even source based. But हाँ, एक चीज तो है कि once you have seen this entire analysis कि किस टाइप के क्वेश्चंस आए थे, किस टाइप के जॉनर्स आए थे, तुम लोगों को थोड़ा बहुत आइडिया आ गया होगा कि what type of questions you are supposed to prepare from now onwards, right? Because we only have a handful of days in front of us, and I am hoping that you guys are going to make the most of it. So that's it from my side. And Shiv, if the paper pattern changes, they are definitely going to give us a warning beforehand. ये पिछले साल भी हुआ था. देखो, paper pattern as such नहीं बदलेगा, but the thing is the type of questions might change. That is definitely a possibility. But बात ये है कि if you are somebody who is an avid reader, somebody who has been preparing vocabulary diligently, somebody who has been taking care of their grammar, so English में इससे ज़्यादा आ ही क्या सकता है? So you don't really have to worry. ठीक है? So that's basically it from my side, guys. Thank you so much. All the very best. And please prepare well. Please make use of your time wisely. And I'm taking your leave. Thank you so much. Bye bye.